This is the moment before a TikToker murders a complete stranger in a Snuff film.
Simpson, guess what?
I'm on do this. I'm on TikTok, so be careful what you're saying. You look.
I'm the same.
Your eyes look red.
We head over to the town of Methil in Scotland for this next one, and normally at this point in the video I'd provide a small breakdown about the place, but to be honest with you, there isn't much to do or see other than what you'd do as a local: go to work, the pub, a shop, or for a walk. However, Scotland's capital, Edinburgh, is just an hour away. Unlike much of rural Scotland, Edinburgh is filled with things to do. Whether you want to step back in time along the historical Royal Mile, visit the National Museum of Scotland, hit up the nightlife scene, or the tens of other activities you can do, there's something for everyone in the capital. It's to no surprise then that many Methil residents find themselves in Edinburgh when they're looking for something to do. Anyway, enough of the big city, let's get back to Methil. Picture this, it's the winter of 2021. You're bored out of your mind and decide to start a TikTok page, hoping to hit the big time. This is exactly what a then 24-year-old Dylan Brister did. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, he was hoping to become TikTok's next biggest star. Most of his videos can't be played in this video due to copyright issues, but they don't show much anyway. It's just him and his friends lip-syncing and dancing. Dylan managed to amass just over 1,000 followers at the time of recording, and I believe if he wasn't tangled up in this case, his popularity would have grown over time. I mean, up until that point, he managed to gain a small following over next to nothing. However, Dylan had skeletons in his closet, ones that likely would have eventually derailed his rise to fame. What are those skeletons then? Well, if we rewind the clock back to 2018, he spiked 2 women with diazepam. He slipped the drug into one victim's drink and placed it directly into the mouth of the other. Although Dylan was charged in relation to the case, it isn't entirely clear if any sentence was handed down. Drugs were commonplace in his life. Following his mother's death from a drug overdose, Dylan reportedly turned to drugs as a coping mechanism. This isn't no excuse for his behaviour, but it does offer some insight into his troubled background. In 2019, Dylan met a fresh out of secondary school Allan. From there, the two began what can only be described as a relationship. At one point, believe it or not, they were due to get married, however the plans were cancelled on the day of the wedding. The reason for the cancellation remains unclear, but those close to them described their relationship as unhealthy and perhaps toxic, so maybe that can give us a clue as to why they never ended up getting married. I was in love with Dylan, but he treated me bad. I was treated like a dog. He was just a violent, angry man. Cameron's life was one marked by tragedy. Raised by his grandparents, he endured the loss of his mother, Allan, a police constable in a car crash way back in 2007. The experience of losing his mother was one that he shared with Dylan, so it was probably something they bonded over when they first communicated. There are no reports of unhinged or criminal behaviour prior to Cameron meeting Dylan. In fact, just 2 years earlier, he made headlines in the local news for some charity work, a stark contrast to the person he would become after 2019, when of course he met Dylan. With Dylan being much older, it was clear that after they met, he had an influence over him, and began passing on that disturbed mindset of his. You know, the one that says, spiking people is okay. A lot of us fell in love with someone that we should have only f***ed once, then murdered. Cameron agreed with that statement. Now, one may look at this as an edgy Facebook post, but I'm here to tell you this was an actual reflection of his mindset, because what you're reading right now would happen in real life just a few short years later. It's the 2nd of November 2021, and both Dylan Brister and Allan are heavily intoxicated, sky high on drugs, and have been making TikTok videos.
Simpson, guess what?
I'm on do this. I'm on TikTok, so be careful what you're saying. You look.
I'm the same.
Your eyes look red.
Will you stay to tea?
Absolutely. About time.
Okay, next day.
I hate. Oh, you love steam the heat for your dad, don't you? What did you say?
I see into the ice. If I do that, I save 3,500 a year. And she says I could make up to 20 grand. Babe, she says I could make 20 grand in a year just by saving up that 3,500 in that account.
Yeah.
And
Keep
then
your financial situation
about-
shit to do me.
for 5 years, but it's 5 years I can't touch it.
Huh?
I cannot touch that money for 5 years. And if
What's
I
needs
put,
that in?
no, and I don't need to put it in. I can put little in. I don't need to put any in at all, any months. But if I stick to putting 300 a month every month for a whole year for 5 years, I have 3,500 a year. That's
I can do it. Is that a bank you just been I should be able to go live. Please help me go live. I just think I'd get that banner. Right. If you help me, I'll help you. Okay, thanks. I mean, I could, but I'm like, got a wee bit mental health problems and then bad time of the year. So, put a wee dip, and then I'm going to lie and chill it in my wee did, and I'll speak to you later.
Pardon me.
And have a lovely night. I'm sorry I totally forgot today. Hope everybody's had a good day and had good Halloween. I'm totally so tender. I feel like I done like rougher than the duck. The duck's not rough, she's very soft, which is on the mad half finish.
In less than 24 hours, the pair are about to find themselves at the centre of some disturbing events, and if you've read the title of this video, you'll know exactly what we're referring to. So how do we go from light-hearted TikToks then to the situation in question? Well, throughout the second, the boys had been using the dating app Brister to recruit someone to join in on some sexual activities. Their intentions were anything but ordinary. They would tell a potential candidate that they were to engage in a rough time. Reports have gone so far to describe it as abuse. Believe it or not, someone actually agreed to participate and was even on the verge of travelling to Dylan's home. However, they backed out after the pair revealed drugs would be involved. So the boys pressed on with their search, but ultimately struggled to find someone willing to join them. That was all about to change though, when a complete stranger was about to cross paths with them. And if this stranger wasn't going to give it up consensually, which in fact they never asked if he wanted to participate, then they would do it non-consensually to satisfy their depraved needs. Father of 3, Calum Simpson was the light in his children's lives. He was just a fun dad, he was the jokey one, they totally loved him, and he was the soft touch. He did a lot of stuff with the kids. Calum was the perfect person for the 4 of us. He enjoyed socialising and really stayed the same as he had been the life and soul. It's how girlfriend Bobby Cohen describes him. The couple had met while attending Fife College and their connection was instant. Soon after, they moved in with each other and had their eldest son Calum, followed by their daughter Mirren, and finally, baby Lila, who was born just 11 days before the events we're about to delve into. I was attracted to his personality. He was just able to make everybody laugh. He was really well liked. Who would want to cause harm to this beloved father of 3 then? Well, if you haven't guessed it by now, then it was Dylan and Cameron. So, what happened? Well, not only were the pair using Brister to try and meet someone, but they were also staying in touch with friends throughout the day. One who's relevant to the story was Dylan Stewart, who we'll call Dylan S moving forward. At around 7:38 PM on the 2nd, Dylan told Dylan S that he and Cameron were having a quiet night in and invited him over, which ultimately led to Dylan S and his friend Calum Simpson accepting the invitation. The timeline becomes hazy after their arrival, but the next confirmed event is Dylan S exiting the property, leaving Calum Simpson behind. Remember, Calum didn't know the pair, he was a stranger. What unfolded next was truly horrific. You see, Calum was left behind because he was incapacitated. Dylan was back up to his old tricks, and just like he did with those two women in 2018 and who knows since, he spiked Calum's drink, this time with etizolum, a powerful sedative reportedly 10 times stronger than Valium. Just to put it into perspective, you can't even get etizolum on a prescription from the doctor in the United Kingdom. Dylan S. assumed he was just out of it on alcohol and trusted that the boys would take care of him. This would prove to be a fatal mistake on his part. Once Dylan S. had left, Cameron and Dylan wanted to indulge in that sexual activity that they had been planning. So they tied Calum up and spent hours taking turns sexually assaulting him, raping him, and causing deep cuts to his body. All of this was captured on video. At some point during the ordeal, Calum sadly passed away. His cause of death was later determined to be the result of the spiked drink. Once the pair were finished assaulting him, they went to bed like nothing had happened, leaving Calum dead tied up on the floor. When Dylan woke up at around 11 AM on November 3rd, he went to check on Calum only to find out his body was cold to the touch. Panic soon set in, so he sprang into action and attempted to cover his tracks. First, he hid the drugs in a safe and handed it to a neighbour. Then he deleted all of his videos. Finally, he called for emergency services to tell them he had a man at his home who wasn't breathing. When first responders arrived, they confirmed that Calum had indeed passed. An investigation into the incident was launched, with both Dylan and Cameron brought in for questioning. Initially, they tried to say that they'd gave him diazepam, which, as you know, was a lie. In other words, they were telling the police they're unsure how he could have died because he would have needed to consume a huge amount of the drug to die, which they said he didn't. Both also admitted to having sex with him as well, but once again falsely claimed that he had been conscious and consented. When forensic evidence and the toxicology report came back, it revealed the truth. Etizolum had been present within the property and that Calum had indeed consumed a lethal dose. Further evidence emerged when police examined Dylan's phone. Data recovery revealed that several videos that had been taken within the time frame of Calum's death had been deleted, and while most of the videos couldn't be restored, one was, and it blew a hole in their story. The video depicted an unconscious Calum being subjected to horrific abuse. It's entirely possible he may have already been dead in the video. When this new evidence was put to the pair, they started to change their story. I won't dispute the fact that Calum passed out and we carried on. I didn't spike the boy, but yes, I gave him drugs. We raped him and continued to have sex. It is what it is. Disgusting. It should never have happened. I'm not going to make excuses. Cameron told me he put 5 diazepam tablets in his drink, and I called him a fucking idiot. I genuinely thought they were diazepam, not etizolum. If I knew there was etizolum in those tablets, I would not have taken them off the dealer. When detectives confronted Cameron with this information, he admitted to sourcing the drugs but denied spiking anyone, and told them that he had told Dylan that what he had picked up wasn't diazepam but rather etizolum, adding that he warned him to be cautious because the dealer told him that someone had died from using them. Both men were charged for their involvement in the murder and were initially granted bail. 4 months later, however, they appeared in court and were remanded into custody. When a pre-trial hearing took place 8 days after that, the judge, believe it or not, granted Cameron bail. The reason why has never been reported. And would you believe me if I told you that just 1 week after being released on bail, Cameron, who had been placed in a hotel by the state due to homelessness, began stalking a female employee at the hotel. It's believed that after following her around, he backed her into a corner and asked if she wanted to shoot an adult movie with him and a friend. He then proceeded to show her nude images of the male friend. The worker reportedly feared for her life during the ordeal and was forced to carry a panic alarm following it. It doesn't make any sense to me. Why the hell was he actually walking about when he's accused of such a serious crime? I've been terrified to go out of my house since the day he approached me. Even more shocking though was the fact that the court didn't remand him into custody, because he's out on bail for murder. No. They gave him what's called supervision by the social work department. This would go on for 18 months. Essentially, it's probation. Great work, guys. In October of 2024, both men stood trial for the murder of Calum Simpson. They denied the charges that were placed against them. Few details emerged from the trial, but one notable observation was the lack of emotion displayed by Cameron and Dylan. At one point, ladies and gentlemen, Dylan was that unfazed by the proceedings that he asked to leave the dock for a cup of tea. Ultimately, and to no surprise at all, both men were found guilty on all charges and were both handed life sentences. Dylan with the minimum term of 23 years, whilst Cameron received a minimum term of 19 years. As the pair were led away, shouts of "rot in hell" from family members echoed through the courtroom. Dylan smirked in response.